let's go ahead and get started with our interview here. We have Stefan, aka Archon1981, and you can check out his YouTube channel in the description below. If you've been keeping your ear to the floor with prototype news, you may have heard or seen or heard through the grapevine that he had found basically a unannounced, and obviously because it was unannounced, unreleased NES prototype cart that had a wrestling game on it, UWC, and I believe you released it out into the wild recently, or I'm not quite sure the 100% of the story on that, but...
Yeah, so we're still working on that.
Okay.
Sorry, did you want to continue, or I can just take over?
No, I was just
okay, cool.
kind of giving everybody an idea of who you were and what we're going to talk about today. But yeah, go ahead and take it from here. We want to hear all about it.
So I, as you can kind of see behind me, I collect a lot of Nintendo games.
Yeah,
and
I see some
and
Nintendo
so I do work a lot with former Nintendo employees, sometimes current Nintendo employees, but more often former. So this guy that I had approached, when I bought the cart, he was like, it was part of a bulk deal where I was just buying a bunch of other stuff.
Yep.
And he's like, hey, I have this prototype. I don't have an NES to test it on. I don't know if it works. I think it's WCW is what he had said, which was a released wrestling game by FCI, I think, right? And so I was like, okay, well, sure, just throw it in. I almost didn't buy the thing, right? Because it was an untested cart for a game that I really didn't care about.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, okay, the price is right. Just kind of let's throw it into the batch. And so then it gets to me, and in testing it, the splash screen comes up, and it's this big yellow angry screen with UWC across the front.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I know for sure this is nothing that's on my shelf because I have the North American set. And so, but you don't want to be wrong on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So I was very cautious, and I just sent some screenshots to some friends. I was like, what do you think about this? Like, is this something you've seen before? Could it be like a translated Famicom game that I'm not aware of?
Mm-hmm.
But excuse me, I'm also getting over a cold. But the more that we looked into it, the more I was positive that this was something that no one had ever seen before. And then I approached Frank Cifaldi at the Video Game History Foundation, right? That's
cool.
what they're calling themselves.
I believe so, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, this is definitely not something that we'd seen before. So I did a little bit of capture just to throw up that video, and then that same night I mailed it out to Frank to dump and preserve. So it has been dumped and preserved. It has not yet publicly been released because I paid, under the circumstance, I paid virtually nothing for this thing, right? And now discovering what it is, and with all the media coverage and all that, I feel terrible about that. I don't have the free capital to just be like, here's some more money, but I want to do right by the seller.
Sure.
And so I want to do like a physical run or something like that, just to generate just to generate a little bit, just to be like, hey, now, like, because this hobby is all about maintaining relationships, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't want, this is a bridge I don't want to burn, obviously. And so I was like, hey, I want to feel right about this. I want you to feel right about this. So let me generate some capital, by selling a short run of physical cartridges. And so basically I'm going to cover my upfront cost and then give everything else to him. And then at that point I'll release it online for the people who just want to play it, and that's fine too. But there's been a lot of interest in physical cartridges, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to be able to give something back to him, and so that I feel better about it. But yeah, I just wanted to be clear. I'm not like trying to make a mint on this thing or like trying to hoard the ROM or anything. I need to feel good about what happened, and right now I don't feel good about what happened.
Sure. Hey, that makes sense to me. I mean, like, it's nice that you're trying to. I feel like a lot of people online would cut and run. You know what I mean? And they're like, yes, like, I got this really rare thing. I'll see you in hell. But like, you're trying to preserve that relationship.
And this is like this is a very succinct example of a case that that really paid off dividends almost instantly, because this was the same seller that the next week he had a Nintendo World Championship cart that also went to me. So had I just cut and run for my $250 prototype, right? Then I would not have had the opportunity to get the deal on the NWC cart. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, see, people in the chat, it pays to be a good person.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't burn bridges.
Don't burn bridges. Yeah.
Those like limited run lost games, like I get calls at Retrotaku fairly frequently. They're like, "Hey, do you guys have Boots the Cat?" It's like, I don't even know if those repros have actually been shipped out yet. Right. I keep checking that Kickstarter, and I have no idea what's going on with that. But it's like crazy that some of these games that never got released back then are getting like full releases now.
I just picked up a copy of 40 Winks for the N64. It was released on the PlayStation, but I think is it Pico or Pico Interactive?
I've always called it Pico.
Pico, that's what I thought initially, but then I kind of questioned myself. But they basically have a history of like picking up these old games, and originally the N64 version was supposed to have like a multiplayer, so they added in a multiplayer. They added in expansion pack support, and the option for that doesn't even make any sense because it doesn't say like low, medium, high. It gives like some other random adjective for it. So I'm like, what is where weird? How do I use this? But yeah, no, there's definitely a market for that. And when you do ultimately, get a physical run together, let us know, because we would be, first off, I'd like a copy. I'd like to buy a copy, of course. But we will help promote it however we can on social or do little tags for it on the video and stuff, because I think people
so far it looks like John Riggs and I have been talking extensively and about this, and he just out of the kindness and goodness of his heart wants to do them for me. So he's just basically gonna charge me materials and then do that. I think we're probably gonna end up doing like 100 or something like that, which is kind of a lot for a repro, but also there has been a lot of interest. So
I mean, if you can, go for it. I've never actually talked to John Riggs, but he's like, I follow him on Instagram. I watch his videos every now and again. It just seems like a really nice, decent guy.
Yeah,
he's one of the contributors for Metal Jesus.
Yeah.
And he's super down to earth.
Yeah, and he like mostly on his Instagram just posts cereal.
Yeah,
like
I love it too, because like he integrates his kids into the hobby too. Like it's really cool. He's just a super down to earth guy.
Yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth on that, just because I've had sometimes my kid, his name's Thomas, or Heart Baby as he's known, will just bust into the room, while we're live. And so when Richie and I were live the other weekend, I just had him sit in my lap because he was just giving my wife a hard time. He's running around like a maniac.
He's grabbing stuff and running around with Virtua Hamster, whipping it over his head.
He'll go and be like, "This needs battery." Whenever something doesn't work, he goes, "It needs batteries." So he goes, "This needs batteries. This needs batteries." So running around, but then at the same time, it's like, I don't know if I want his face spread everywhere online, but then it's also kind of cool to integrate your kids, So I think people kind of have different feelings on it, but I think it's cool that he's like, John is very open about it and stuff. I think I'm just kind of...
Well, and his kids are a little bit on the older side too, so they can make the conscious decision whether or not they want to be. My almost 4-year-old is also a nudist while she's in the house, which is great, except that I have all these amazing pictures and videos of her that I can never share online because she's always naked.
But
I had a camera crew in here the other day, and she was running around, and they're like, you know what? We just won't pan the camera down. It'll be fine. So they did this whole segment, and during had the camera been an inch lower, you would have seen my kid running around naked.
I mean, it's totally innocent, but it's just you can't put that stuff out there. You know what I mean? It's
some kids at that age, they're just like, why? Clothes restrict me. And it's like,
right.
Yeah, but and then
and it's just it would be so much work out of my day to constantly be chasing her around with underwear,
Yeah.
It's so much easier to just when people come over, I'll be like, please excuse my naked child.
Sorry, kid's weird. Nothing to be done about it.
I don't
Never mind. I don't know if he probably wouldn't care if I told the story, but Bobby's son, I went over there the other day, a couple months ago actually. It wasn't the other day, but his son was just totally Winnie the Pooh in it. Shirt, nothing below, and I'm like, so your son's business is out, and he's like, yeah, the only way we can potty train him, he doesn't care if he pees or poops in his pants. But it really bothers him if he pees and poops on the floor.
Yeah.
And so he's like, we just have stripped him down, and he's just,
It's an interesting training wheel.
Well, that's
it
his
is a thing.
particular
Like, we did that.
thing. Yeah, he just didn't.
That was helpful for my daughter as well. Yeah, something about it. The whole running down the leg thing just does not feel great.
Yeah,
to her.
plus they're used to pooping in their pants. They've done it all their lives up until that point. So this is tangential for everyone in the chat. This is some parenting advice
of our
but it was just
anytime you get two parents together, especially when we have kids that are relatively the same age, this is going to happen.
Yeah, but I was just like, wow, your kid's dick is out. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's it's just is what it is. You have to do what you got to do as a parent. I mean, like. Whatever, Yes. But I did want to congratulate you. I was looking at the views here, 136,000 views on the video. That's wonderful. That's
and that
really
and that was
fantastic.
like over like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, that's only been out for a month. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I'm just scrolling through it here real quick. Here we go. I'm actually playing it as we're talking, so people can kind of have an idea of what we're actually talking about in case they haven't seen the video yet.
Also on, I think it's up right now. He had it accidentally flipped to like preview mode or whatever. But the Video Game History Foundation on their channel, they did do a full playthrough. So you can
good.
see, it is the game made it so it was on a lot check cart, right? So like the cart that it came on had like a little dip switch for mirroring. So it can take basically any kind of game that it needs to take. So it's less bespoke than a typical prototype cart that you'd find. So the Video Game History Foundation did a whole playthrough. So because it made it to lot check, I mean, this thing was finished. Like, it's not. Yeah. That's what makes it so crazy that it then was never released, is that they made it up to the point where they're like, hey, can we put this on your console? And then something happened.
Yeah.
It's crazy how often that has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there like credits at the end, like when you beat the game or anything?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's anyone that's still active that might be able to.
It shows like a title belt, and it's in broken English. It reminds me a lot of the whole "A Winner's You" credits.
Oh, okay. So it might be a little difficult because they're Okay.
Yeah, and they're all Japanese names.
Yeah, so it'd be
that would be
exceptionally difficult to actually contact anyone. Unfortunately,
I know. Both the Video Game History Foundation and actually like the wrestling scene has also sort of jumped on this, right? And started asking around. So UWC was like this placeholder title for when Turner bought the WCW before they named it WCW, right? So like they never even publicly, like, UWC is listed on some like internal paperwork apparently, and that's basically it. Yeah. Like, as far so it was made during this weird transitional time.
Okay.
But even then, like, people there's like nobody at the WCW who knows anything about this game. Like, even people who've been there for a long time, like, no one can find anything on this game.
Crazy.
I wonder if it was a situation where, I think you might have mentioned this, like something like this in the video, where like it might have been like a rights issue where sometimes developers will make a game. And it's like kind of like to demo an idea, and it's like, hey, we have this, but then it also begs the question, how would they know the name is WCW? But regardless, it's like it could have been a situation where they didn't really have the rights to it, but it's like, hey, you could pick this up,
and then we could just rebrand,
and we
swap
could,
a few sprites,
or buy the rights.
Yeah,
right. So because these are like known wrestlers, I would assume. Right. So it's like I don't really follow wrestling.
And that might have been the rights issue too, right? So maybe some of those wrestlers like shifted around as far as their like organizational ownership.
Yeah, and it would have been too much of a hassle to.
I am not the wrestling guy at all, so like I have to guess on this kind of stuff. But someone who is wrestling savvy may know better than I.
We should talk to Johnny Bravo about it. Yeah, we're buddies with, and he's been a long time contributor in terms of both being on the show, but also back in the day he would just send us stuff to take a look at.
Yeah.
His name is Johnny Bravo. He was on the sort of the local wrestling scene for a long, long time, and then he started doing more national stuff.
Isn't he a ref on Impact now?
Yeah, he's a ref on Impact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so cool. His wrestling knowledge is insane, and both in terms of like like knowing how to wrestle, but also history of wrestling.
Right.
Like he knows everybody, every story behind everybody. So yeah, maybe we'll chat with him about this and see if maybe I don't think he'd be familiar with the game, but he may know the individuals and time frame
also,
when they shifted or something.
I don't know. Like people are like hounding for information about this game, but I just don't know how much there would be to have, even if someone was like, yeah, I remember that, and that's it.
Yeah,
like, sure. Yeah. We didn't make it. End of story. Like I just don't know how much.
Yeah,
much actual information is going to be out there.
It could have been also because you mentioned like there was. I think you mentioned there was sort of like a changing of the guard at that time, where it was probably just
the organization.
Like new boss came in and he's just like, yeah, I don't like it, shelve it.
Yeah. or just any active deal gets canceled, right? Because that happens a lot too. Like
a lot of
like huge regime changes, just like clean slate. Let's cancel everything we're doing.
Yeah.
Like when Disney bought Marvel, it was actually kind of weird that they didn't buy out all the other contracts, right? Like that's usually something that you do in a takeover like that. Like bring everything back to home base.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's common in marketing. When a new marketing director comes in, they want to make it seem like, obviously the clean slate, but it's also like, hey, everything the previous person was doing doesn't matter anymore because there's a reason they're not here anymore. It wasn't working. Wipe it off. Right? Like it's all my new ideas. It's my brainchild. It's my this. It's my that.
Right. Everybody wants their legacy too. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And you don't want your legacy tarnished. It's just like you see it with every president, right? They're like, oh, well, everything the last person did was garbage, Like, and it's pretty much always that way.
The first 100 days of breaking all the previous things, which I think every administration has done since the founding of this.
Yeah, all the executive orders and stuff, and then like, it's the same cycle every time, obviously. So, but yeah, it's interesting because we got a kind of along the same lines. We got a prototype GameCube controller in recently, and some NPDP cartridges for the GameCube that had, some testing software, a prototype of gun on it. Yeah. And, the owner was talking to the original owner, and you have to keep in mind that, like, for the GameCube was like year 2000, 2001, 2002-ish or whatever. So that person has to remember back to like a project they were working on like 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. So, so details on that were sparse. Yeah. Right? So this GameCube controller came in to their company with like no buttons. It had a couple of buttons and that's it. And they're like, yeah, it just came that way. No other details, right? But then even if you were to be able to get in contact with one of these people, you're talking 30 years. Yeah. Do they really remember the intimate details of a scrapped project?
Right. And even if they had documents, it's like they've probably moved 3 or 4 times since then. So it's in a box of a box of a box. So
yeah, I've got this fiber optic Power Glove sign that was there. There were 2 of them that were made for CES 1990 by Mattel, and people like went. So like we looked at the property tag on the back and contacted the guy who actually made those signs, and he's telling us whatever he remembers, and people are like, well, his story doesn't really add up, and I'm like, dude. He's trying to remember 30 years ago, and he's not in this hobby. He does not care. Like he could not care less that like some neckbeards are like asking him about this sign that he made 30 years ago.
Pretty much, yeah.
And,
it was a gig. It was, like it was a job, So it's like, we are so hyper focused on like, oh man, like what could have been, and like this and that. And like it's really cool for us, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But like, there's no reason for us to get upset at people that don't remember a project they were working on like 30 years ago. I mean, it's like, come on.
Or be surprised.
It's
like we are even like in even in the game hobby, like people like us are like this tiny, tiny, tiny niche. We're very vocal, so it seems like there's more of us than there are. Yeah, but like nobody cares. Like on the the global scale.
Yeah, and I've often said like when we're talking about prototypes and stuff, I'll kind of turn to the camera and be like, ultimately none of this matters, because the world keeps turning. You know what I mean? But it's really cool and it's really fun. But it's like I think sometimes we get a little bit hyper-focused on it. And, John, I just want so bad for you to remove that eyelash from your glasses.
No.
Just get a little.
Speaking of hyper focused.
So it's in a lot of ways, like some of this stuff is almost kind of like looking at the extra features on a DVD, the behind the scenes making of, like, few people actually look at it.
Yeah.
It's a very niche market, but we love it when we do actually get to see behind the curtain.
Yeah, and that's not to diminish the historical importance or anything, but it's just, I think sometimes when just getting into the conversation about how people get upset why developers don't remember some detail, it's like, come on. You know.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, like, obviously we want to be able to continue to find these unreleased titles and unmentioned titles and stuff.
And like you said, at the time, it's a gig. At least it certainly was back then. Like, there was not this like collector culture back. Like, so I started working in console and like quality assurance many years ago. 2002 was my first game. And at the time, like, if I look back and think about all like the dev hardware that sat on my desk for those years, like how much like crazy stuff. To me now, you know, like 2019 Stefan is like salivating at all that stuff, but like it's just like artists who undervalue their own work, because how can something that I make be valuable, right? Yeah. And that's the mentality that a lot of these artists had. So yeah, of course they're not going to remember 30 years ago, because at the time they were just trying to keep a roof over their head. Yeah. Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And that's actually a pretty good segue. I know that you mentioned you primarily work in QA. Tell us a little bit about your history in the industry.
Yeah, so QA is actually how I got my start. I've been in production for a number of years now, but I broke into the game industry through quality assurance back when that was a thing. Now it's there's so many, like, you used to have publishers, like, for instance, when I was at Disney, our QA during peak season was like 300 headcount, which is just like astronomical. And now, like, the only real test floors that are that big now are like the test houses in India that you contract with, you know, or that kind of thing. Like, there's so much outsourcing done for quality assurance that it's really like, when people are like, oh, like, tell me about your career path and like how you broke in, and I want to do it that way, and I'm like, it's just not as viable a path as it used to be. I think it would be much easier to get in through like education or something like that. But these days, but yeah, so I had gotten my associates in web design in 2002, and for anyone who's not familiar with that year as it relates to web design, that was the year of the .com crash.
Fun.
So had I graduated when I started, then I would have had like a solid 2 years of like hand coding HTML for like $90,000 a year, because it was magic. Yeah. But 2 years later, everyone had gotten wise, and so I had a degree that I just could not use. And a friend of mine was he was a QA lead over at Vivendi Universal. Hey, Jared. And he was like, hey, you know, like, this is a path that's kind of applicable to your skill set. I think you'd be good at it. Do you want to try that out? And I said, sure. So I interviewed at Vivendi Universal, and they turned me down. But they said THQ had a very rigorous QA training program at the time. So basically, you'd come in green. They would train you for 2 weeks. At the end of that, you'd take a test. And if you passed, then congratulations, you're a QA tester. And if you didn't, then you just got cut your check for 2 weeks and sent on your way.
Okay.
So organizations were basically so impressed with THQ's training process that they were like, hey, we don't want you yet. Go work for THQ and then come back and we'll hire you.
Nice.
So yeah, THQ was my first company. Fairly Odd Parents for the original Xbox was my first game.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
So I was there. Dawn of War was the first Dawn of War was my last game there, which was an amazing experience, because I'd always loved Relic before THQ broke them. They did Homeworld, and they were just amazing, an amazing RTS studio. I got to work on Stalker a little bit before they like shelved it for 3 or 4 years and then brought it back. That was a weird thing. Like, I thought that was vaporware. They were working on Stalker a lot longer than anyone thought.
Yeah.
then what else was cool there? Oh, I worked on a version of Full Spectrum Warrior was originally a game commissioned by the U.S. military, and so
Really?
there was it was a military training program, and it was so funny working on a project with the military because they were laser focused with how things were done. So we would come to them. I remember very vividly there was a bug, and it's still in that build, where if you threw a grenade in the back of a truck, the game would crash 100% of the time. And we're like, hey, we really need to fix this. And the Army project manager was like, well, we're not going to teach them to throw grenades into trucks. So, and like at that point, we're like, okay, whatever. Like, but yeah. So then Full Spectrum Warrior became a retail project based off of the internal Army project. But then, so I bounced around from studio to studio, like you tend to do in QA, especially in LA, because there's just tons of publisher work out here. So THQ to EA to Take-Two Interactive, which is the parent company of Rockstar, to I worked at Jack Pacific for a little bit doing TV games. That was really crazy. The plug and play joystick stuff.
Okay.
Which some of that stuff is actually NES hardware. I don't know if you've ever looked into that.
Kind of makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, Frank Cifaldi actually taught me that. He's like, yeah, a lot of the the original Atari Flashback is an NES. So like some of that from a historical standpoint that matters, because technically some of those like one-off games on this plug and play hardware, they're actually new NES games.
That's pretty cool.
Like, if
I never thought about
that. They're devastatingly difficult to dump, but if were you able to, you could put them on a cart and play it on an NES. But yeah, so then I found my way to Disney. I was there for 9 years. That's where I made the move to production. I was the product evaluation lead, which was essentially a user experience role. We called it sort of creative quality assurance, where my team would look at builds every milestone and sort of determine internally like where they could adjust the game to increase the creative quality of the game, but also to predict how the market would receive the game, which was actually really difficult when I was at Disney. It was a time where they were just doing shovelware and they knew it, right? I was working primarily on channel titles, so Disney Channel shows, and turnover on those brands on the channel is so quick that you could not conceivably make a console game before a show was canceled.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because they only do what is it, like 100 episodes or something, and then they're like, all right, rerun. Just start reruns.
Right, yeah. So I mean, once they're in syndication, they're like, whatever. Which is typically like 2 or 3 seasons, but sometimes you'd only get 1 season or a pilot episode. And so there had been games that I had worked on that ended up getting canceled because the show got canceled before we could finish. But yeah, so during that time, there was
my kid was crying about something in the background. I try to soundproof it, but you guys might hear my son go, "What's the crap going?"
Yeah, no.
Thomas is
Grandma is my kid right now, but if they get home, you might see her running around back here.
You just have to throw up a tarp.
Yeah, that's right. But so there was, I called it the Disney discount, right, where the reviewers back then were all like Halo playing 19-year-old bros, and now they're
I want
us.
You to play
right?
iCarly.
Now we work at those review houses, so now you can actually like have a children's game reviewed fairly, where before it was like, well, this shit sucks, it's for kids, and we're like, yeah, bro, it's for kids.
Yeah.
You know? So that role was challenging because it was a lot of me learning how review houses reviewed games and less about the actual quality of our games. So I could be like, hey, these are ways that you could improve the game, but at the same time, they're not going to review it any better because Hannah Montana's on the box.
Yeah.
So that was kind of challenging, but yeah, that's where I kind of transitioned from quality assurance to creative production, and that was really just me identifying a need that the studio lacked, which was that sort of like creative quality, and then sort of raising my hand. I have a history in my career of finding my way into jobs by identifying holes and then volunteering myself for the work.
Well, that's a good way to move forward, you know?
Yeah. So for a while, I was at Nickelodeon. I was there for 3 years, and that was an interesting role because it was both a television producer role and a game producer role. So I worked on a show called Game Shakers, which actually is still airing. It's been canceled, but they're still airing new episodes. But it's a show about 2 high school age girls who own a video game studio. So, so the promise of the show is that the audience can see the show, see the game the girls that are working that they're working on, and then go play those games. So so all the Game Shakers, that you can go to iOS or Android and just search for Game Shakers, all our games will come up. But that was extraordinarily difficult because we were shipping day and date with episode air dates.
Oh my God, yeah.
So we did not get a whole lot of pre-pro because the game was ideated in the writer's room when they were writing the script for an episode, which happens 2 weeks before film. And then, so post might be another, 3 or 4 months. But so basically you're making an entire bespoke iOS app over the course of 3 months, which is really hard.
Yeah, that sounds more like an amazing marketing idea than it does a good gaming experience in practice. You know?
So and there was a lot of leading with like a game name. Like I'd have the executive producer pop his head into my office and he'd go, "Stefan, I got it, Pop Star Surgeon," and then I'd have to make a Pop Star Surgeon. And that's actually a game that I did make. You can find Pop Star Surgeon.
Oh my God, that's great.
I'm downloading it right
or like
now.
they would be so talking about that, like kind of the TV aspect. I also had to be on set during, so they used footage from the games in the episodes. So I had to be on set to make sure that what they were doing made sense for a game that I was going to make in like 3 months.
Oh my God.
Which was just crazy, because
that sounds like
and they would do these like really tight insert shots of like, because all the tablets were green screen, right? Again, they're playing games I haven't made yet. And
so like the motion that they're doing has to.
So they would do these really tight insert shots of these very, very like specific hand gestures, and the producers would look at me and be like, "So we got it," and I'm like, "I don't know. Sure." Yeah, so I guess now I'm making a game that can do this specific thing. So I actually had to ideate game mechanics based on gestures.
It's like,
oh my God, that's insane.
What was the movie where Tim Allen and then we're on the Star Trek-like show, and then they're forced to pilot a ship.
Galaxy Quest?
But the aliens thought that they were actually using controls, and it was really just them pantomiming. So they're like, none of these controls work. This is just madness.
I mean, I loved that experience. It certainly was the most unique role I've ever had, but it was really, really, really hard, especially that first season. I did it for 3 seasons, and thankfully for the second season, I was just like, guys, my hair is falling out. Like, I can't go at this pace. So during the hiatus, I ideated basically a bucket of game mechanics. And I said, okay, next time you need a game, pick from this bucket. And then at least day 1, we have something, right? So that it wasn't, like, oh, this is a funny name. What's our game going to be? And like, and I loved my writers. I loved my writer's room, but they were not game designers. And so there was very, very often, the game that we ended up making was not originally the game that they pitched. And then, there would have to be like script revisions, which in television is very expensive. And, it was. So
it kind of reminds me of the producer, coming into your office and saying, "Hey, I got this." Reminds me of the story that my buddy would tell me. We were interning out in LA for a summer because we were in the film school at U of M, and basically he got like an internship or a job or something at Lifetime, and like Lifetime is known for making those just like cranking out films.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
low budget,
like
machine gun films, boom, 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 boom,
Yep.
boom, boom, and like they would get all these scripts in, and my friend was like trying to maintain some sort of quality for his script coverage, and be like, okay, well, this is bad, whatever. And his boss, the producer there, would just be like, don't smell it, sell it. Don't smell it, sell it. Just go, just go, just whatever, go. And obviously, I know that obviously you want to put quality into your games, but it's like, being like, okay, I need to create a game, just a full game based on a couple swipes.
Right.
And a name, you know what I mean? Like it's like mind-bogglingly difficult.
And there was that same challenge at talking about the don't smell it, sell it. That was the environment at Disney too, right? Because it was marketing was the gatekeeper, right? And so they didn't particularly care what you put in the box, right? Because at that time they sold so heavily on their brand that I'd be like, hey, if we did X, then it would be more interesting. This would be an interesting game mechanic. Can I have some budget to do this? But it was like, well, no, because regardless of what you put in the box, it's going to sell the same amount of units. Because at that time, again, this was at this weird transitional period where these kids weren't buying their own games. It was grandma buying the games. And at that time, grandma didn't, the parents didn't read reviews. The grandparents didn't read reviews. Now you don't get away with that because it's us buying for our kids. And we sure as hell read reviews.
We remember being swindled.
Yeah. And so, so it's a different environment, but they'd be like, no, we're not going to give you any more budget because it's going to sell the same amount of units. And the frustrating part was at the time they were right.
Yeah.
So it's like, how, it's like, I can't.
You want to produce quality, but they're like cutting you off.
Yeah.
One of the arcade club members just messaged me. Apparently, Small World. He's the guy who sold you your XI, the JVC
nice.
XI. Yeah.
It's right over there.
Yeah.
Is that
awesome.
Jimmy?
Yeah, that's Jimmy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Small World.
Cool. Yeah. I do a lot of Instagram is like my baby, and I do a lot of like deals and stuff through Instagram, so I'm pretty sure we connected there.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. So what are you up to these days?
Now I'm working at a mobile gaming studio doing Facebook instant games primarily.
Okay.
Which is, again, it was another thing where they contacted me and they were just sort of like, hey, we don't know what this team is really going to be. Can you help come figure that out? And so, and that's continuing to change on a daily basis because the Facebook Instant platform continues to change. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing these days. I'm running some Facebook Instant games.
There you go.
Which is a nice change of pace, honestly.
Well, compared to what you just mentioned, like you said, like you probably had a patch of gray hair for every day you worked.
Your boss busting in.
But again, like it was also an environment where, like, coming off of that experience, I felt invincible, right? Like I could do anything. So
it's like boot camp is what it's like. I mean, it's you're basically going through the gauntlet, is what it sounds like. It's like
trial by fire. And again, like it was also it was very difficult, but also in an environment which was, television production that I had never been in. It was the TV studio hired me because I had game experience, not because I had TV experience. So I was working with two vastly different scopes of time, right? TV production is very much like, okay, well, if we need to reshoot something, if we need to fix something, we can throw money at the problem and fix it today, right? Game development doesn't look like that.
Oh, I think we've been invaded by an Anna. Thank you, Anna.
My wife just came in and gave John Chex Mix.
Here, I'll just start pouring these through the camera so you can have some.
Do you want some, Stefan?
Smell-o-vision. But yeah. Game development is very much like 9 women can't have a baby in a month, and so explaining that to TV, so like I was literally the only game guy in a studio full of TV people.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult to reconcile, you know, when I was like, holy shit, we have 3 months, and they're going, it's fine, we have 3 months. Like, reconciling that difference in attitude was very, very difficult.
Wow. Yeah, that that sounds like a living hell.
But I loved it.
I know. Yeah, I know. For me, like, I think I don't know if I'd be able to handle the stress personally. I mean, it's almost as stressful as that eyelash on your goddamn glasses over there. I can't deal with it
having
anymore.
your boss come in and be like, I have an idea for a game. It's called Candy Fart Galaxy, and the controls for it are like, you flip your phone around like it's a skateboard. Do it. All right, see it.
Yeah.
And just walking right out of your office before you can be like, okay, first off, that sounds terrible.
Well, and the culture too there was such that you don't say no to the executive team, right?
Yeah.
So like we just made it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I worked in the film industry. I didn't work on really any television other than it couldn't really be considered television. It was commercials because it was like film that would ultimately go on television. But when I worked on some features, I worked on music videos, I worked on commercials, that kind of stuff. And like depending on the culture of the team, like, you know, the executive team, the above the line people, you know, were basically gods.
Right.
And everybody else, it was kind of a screw you, you know, like sort of thing. So it's like you did your job, you did it as well as you could, and then you kind of move forward because otherwise, you know, they're the boss. They are a living, breathing god.
Yeah.
On set.
Yeah.
You know, okay, and it's
Their name is on the building, quite literally.
yeah.
You
So
know,
it's like you don't
yeah.
say you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. You know, you can't say
I
no.
mean, I think the legal world seems to function very similarly to that, right? Like you don't say no to the people whose names are on the building.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We did get a super chat. Wow, erroneous click, $20. He said, "Gotta drop a bomb on him," and I think that's referring to slamming the like button because he said I slammed the like button twice. So like and unlike. So thank you very much. That's very generous. Now we've officially paid off our Toe Jam and Earl purchase from 2 weeks ago to stream that because I had such a busy week. I didn't do normal Hard for Games Gaiden. I'm like, all right.
How is the new one?
It's very fun. And
That's good to hear.
Richie wanted to play him, so I'm like, okay, let's do it. And I'm like, hey, are you bringing your PS4? And he's like, no, I'm at work. And I'm like, so I have to buy it? And he's like, I didn't think about it. I'm like, okay. So I was like, great. There goes the profitability of this stream, you know.
It's just out the window.
That's funny. But anyways, so are you pretty happy where you are after you dealt with this trial by fire, and now you're kind of in a situation that you're a little more livable, I'd say?
Yeah, I mean, I am at a studio that is very, very, very in the black financially.
Yeah.
So I feel very, not that, you know, the game industry is fraught with situations where you never feel safe.
Sure.
Even when you do feel safe. I mean, you look at, you know, something like, you know, these this last Blizzard layoff, for instance, and like, you know, some of those guys, they're like, oh yeah, this was my first job. I've been here 20 years. What the hell am I going to do? But like nothing is truly safe, but I'm at a studio that I feel very good about right now.
That's good.
And they're wonderful to me. You know, I have some personal situations that like mean I have to work from home a lot and that kind of thing. And they are super, super great about that. So, you know, they've been nothing but supportive, and it's awesome. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's good. Yeah.
It's not the most engaging of work compared to what I've, you know, done previously. You know, my core, we do a lot of hyper casual, and like, you know, my core demographic is like women in their 60s. But which is it's an interesting change rolling off of, you know, doing licensed children work forever. But it's I love the team, and the culture there is just amazing. So, well,
you know, sometimes you have to go with, you know, what's going to function for you, your family, you know, benefit wise, time wise, being able to work from home, that kind of stuff. Like, you know, I obviously not the game industry, but when I worked in film, like I eventually left because it was mostly gigs. You know, you never felt safe. You know, I couldn't function because if I were to get like a normal job, quote unquote, I wouldn't be able to work on these gigs. And eventually it was just like, life is chaos. Like I need to go with a company that functions, you know, for my family and for myself and whatever, you know. So it's getting phlegmy from talking so much, excuse me.
Yeah, I can't do like when I was at EA prior to the spouse lawsuit that people talk about, where the woman had ended up suing them for unpaid overtime for like $1 gajillion because her husband was a designer and they were working 90-hour work weeks for 40 weeks straight, that kind of thing. And so I was there when they were still doing that, and QA especially, because they turnover in QA, especially back then, was you were a second class citizen typically.
Yeah.
And they were just they literally were like you'd be like, hey, I could really use a day off, then you're telling them this after you've been working back to back 90-hour work weeks, and you're like, I could really use a day off, and they're like, well, there's like a line out the door of kids who would love to have your job. Like those are the conversations that your managers would have, and they were right. Because like it was that whole, especially the further back you get, the more like mystery there was surrounding the game industry and like how you made video games, and like legitimately people thought that you played games for a living, right? Like even QA, especially QA, because that's what externally it looks like, right? But So yeah, you did have a line of fire-eyed kids running out the door who were dying to take your shitty job. And so it was difficult to ever feel safe.
Yeah, it's funny because again, I'm not trying to make it about me or anything, but like I
I
have all these but the thing is, I have all these like flashbacks you're telling me where it's like there's just so many similar things where it's like when I was working in film, it'd be like 80-hour weeks, for example. And like I remember I was like a second AD, assistant director. So basically I was in charge of the AD is like does logistics and is in charge of the crew. So like and then the second was more in charge of like on the logistics end, and then the second was on set. So it's like we'd all work under the assistant director, and I was in charge of all of the production assistants and the interns, basically. So I was like their boss. And I was coordinating them between different departments and doing different things and this and that.
And there's a million PAs. So.
Yeah, and well, it was a smaller project, so there wasn't a million PAs, but there was a reasonable amount combined with interns and stuff. But I just remember this, this grown man breaking down and crying, like a 40-year-old man. Toward the end of the shoot, we had 1 day left, and he just broke down and cried because he just it was just so intense, and the pressure was so crazy, and you're on your feet all day, and this and that. But it's just like it's the same like attitude. It's like the higher ups were just like, well, then fuck off.
Yeah. EA was the only gig that I've ever actually walked out on. Like left all my shit at my desk, walked out of the building, never came back, because it was just one of those things where again this was for GoldenEye 2 is what we were working on. So working shitty hours for a game that you just don't care about, and and so I had at that point we were like bringing in our electric bills from home and like having competitions to see who could have the lowest electric bill, because that meant you were spending so much time at the office that you never turn the lights on. And so I had my relationship at the time. I was like 19, but it was the longest relationship I'd ever had, and it was like falling apart directly to the because of these hours that I was working. And I went to my lead and I was just like, hey man, like this was a Saturday, and I was like, I really need to take a day off. If I can just get a Sunday off, and that just to get my head on straight and figure out my relationship, and then I'll come back and be your monkey. And he said no. So I was like, okay, and I just left.
Good.
Maybe they still have my stuff in a box somewhere, but
maybe.
But I just left. It was
Yeah, my sister works costume department in a lot of shows, and she says like just some productions are just madness. But kind of related to video games, she worked on *Halt and Catch Fire*, and in the second season, they're going through the 80s, and they had to pull everybody aside and be like, guys, we know that we have an NES and a TV set up in the other room. You guys need to stop going and playing it all of the time. It's causing production issues.
Funny.
All the PAs would be like, is anybody looking? And they'd like sneak off, and you'd hear the Duck Hunt sound start again. You'd hear that boing, boing from the trigger. And they'd be like, all right, we got to go stop the PAs again.
That's so funny.
Oh my god, that was barely related, but it was a funny story.
But it's an NES story.
It is.
So I figured
My favorite story from then, though, was this guy that was was doing pretty well in real estate and just had this QA job as just like something to take up his time because it was not, his real estate job was not taking up enough of his time. So it was probably 3 or 4 in the morning, and we were there testing GoldenEye, and all of a sudden this guy just lets out this long sigh, and he's just like, all right, I'll see you guys later. And he just walks out, and I never see him again. It was, I long to someday be in a financial situation where I can just like do something for fun and just leave when I feel like it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh my God. Yeah. Just those any job where you have like hours like that, people like their brains start to warp a little bit. You know what I mean? Because like you're just like abusing the good nature of so many people. Oh my God.
And it's so ridiculous too, because I mean it's diminishing returns. Like you can see it on like the bug chart, like especially in QA. If you actually look at the burn down chart for bugs, like it just goes after like 10 hours, it just goes through the floor. Like you are not getting quality work out of someone who's been there 18 hours.
No, absolutely not. No, that person is dying, and like
more work hours. They're just
so tired, you know.
Yeah. Like more work hours doesn't always mean more work done.
No, you get to a point, like I said, diminishing returns, where you're like you're also risking driving home and falling asleep at the wheel. Mm-hmm. I mean, like it's.
Well, they don't care about that.
No, they don't care about that. There's a line of kids at the door that want to replace you, you know, when you get in a horrible, fiery car accident. Good God.
As far as your boss is concerned, it's like, I don't know what you do. You probably just, you're just like clicking things on the computer. I could do your job.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, sure you could.
Press the buttons, monkey. Yeah. Oh, my God. Well, that was a depressing way to wrap this overall conversation up, but regardless, Stefan's in a much better place now than EA. Yeah. I guess we can all collectively just say screw EA and still feel pretty good about that.
I think I'm never going back, so I think that's fair.
I don't think I've bought one of their games in. No, wait, I drunkenly downloaded Apex, and that was the first EA thing I've bought. Well, I didn't really buy it, but 6 years, something like that.
It's been a while. I think the last EA game I got was like the last NBA Jam on Fire edition.
Yeah, that would have been...
Which was like 2013 or something like that. Yeah. It's been a hot minute.
I feel yucky like buying a Genesis game that they made, you know?
And they have those annoying cartridge sizes that don't fit properly.
You know what, though? That's also when EA made games that were like, didn't they make like Mutant League Football or something? Like they made like a lot of really creative stuff, whereas like now I feel like they have some really creative stuff, but then they also have a lot of just kind of like year after year.
They do a lot of acqui-hiring where they're like, we need new blood, just buy another business.
Yeah, and then you're just like, oh, that didn't turn out. Whatever.
Yeah.
See you later.
Then they take that property and then they shutter the studio.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, their business practices leave a lot to be desired. I think we can all agree with that. Just like we can agree that John needs to get that eyelash off of his glasses.
No, it's integral to my glasses.
It's integral to your character.
Yeah, it's a $5 DLC to get rid of that eyelash.
Someone give us a $5 super chat, so I'll get rid of this damn...
You'll be purchasing a loot box which may remove the eyelash.
And we'll also include the eyelash in a physical box that John will send. No, we're not doing that.
Yeah,
we're not sending you a hair over the mail.
Did you guys hear about that guy? Speaking of loot boxes, the guy recently threatened to kill everyone at Square because he spent $2,000 on loot boxes and didn't get the thing. Some social mobile game that they do in Japan.
Wow.
And
I didn't hear about that.
He sent them death threats because he spent $2,000 and didn't get the thing he wanted.
That's like going to the casino and being like, I spent $2,000, I didn't win any jackpots.
Well, there was the one guy a couple of years back. There were a whole bunch of news articles about it. I think even Kotaku covered it, where it was like a local fair, and they had the fair games, like the ring toss and stuff, and you could win a Kinect. And the guy spent $1,000 trying to get the Kinect. And finally, the guy who owned the place was like, I'm sorry, I feel bad for you. I'm just going to refund you.
Wow.
Because he was like, I've spent so much, I need to get it now.
Yeah. That does seem like he was at a fair. because that sounds awfully fair. John, did you know that?
That's an unfair joke.
That's
Well,
a
it's
pretty
like
fair
your,
joke.
your $40 claw machine plush things that you feel so good about after you've spent $40
Yeah.
on the 35-cent stuffed animal.
People get really
Yeah.
addicted to that stuff. I mean, like between obviously casinos, arcade machines, that kind of stuff. Whatever. I remember. I'm not going to say who, but we were at the casino a bit back, and our drunk friend kept pulling out money out of the ATM. He pulled out like he'd already spent a couple $100. He pulled out $300, and me and my other friend literally stole 200 of the 300 that he pulled out, and then he didn't know what happened to it. And he thought maybe I
Oh,
sent
no.
it,
To
maybe
give
I
it
didn't.
back to him.
So we gave it back to him at the end of the night. So he spent another $100 on the Wheel of Fortune slot machine,
That's awesome.
and then at the end of the night, I think before he left, we're like, "You're welcome." We gave him back $200.
I mean, it's like he won $200.
It's like he won $200 of his own money. Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, my neighbor's friend spent $20,000 on Star Citizenships.
That does not shock
yeah.
me. Star Citizen, there's some
Yeah.
high rollers in that.
There is a tier in Star Citizen of DLC that you cannot see until you've spent $1,000.
Wow, that's fantastic.
My question
I don't even know what
now
that is.
So what tier is Elon Musk's account in Star Citizen? Because I'm sure like half of his money goes into that game.
I would imagine so.
Because he's a huge gamer.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's very secretive about it. But if you read any of his biographies, he actually worked at a couple production places. But he eventually decided that he didn't want to work in video game production, and
He just wanted to go into
switched
space,
to
yeah.
doing X.com and PayPal.
Yeah.
So
Well, there you go. Well, hey man, I appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah, no, this was a lot of fun.
yeah, like
And-
I'm sorry, go on.
And it's okay that it was all about you because it's your show. When you come on to my show, then it can be all about me.
But it wasn't. It just reminded me of some stories. I'm just trying to relate.
No, it's fun. It was great.
Oh
really
my
good.
god, yeah. No, but I do really enjoy hearing about your, just because I obviously don't work in that industry, so like hearing your progress through the industry is all is very interesting, and I just always get surprised about little things that are kind of similar between industries and such. Obviously
Sure.
different, but similar, in various
Well,
ways.
and projects are projects, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's going to be a through line for everything. I'm sure that I could go, produce on sneakers and figure it out pretty quickly. You have scope, you have time, and you have resources, and that's kind of going to be the same thing through anything.
And a limited amount of everything.
Yep.
Scope, time, and resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also, obviously, please keep us posted when you do the physical release of the prototype, because obviously
Yeah.
I'd like to purchase one myself, but
Yeah.
I think I don't think you'll have any. What was the quantity that you're making again?
Probably $100 or 100.
100, and you're doing
Yeah.
100 for $100.
No, we'll do 100 probably for, I think 50 is
Oh,
probably
for
gonna be
50.
the price
Okay, I
point.
misunderstood.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah,
No,
because
no.
I was going to say I don't think you'll have any issue burning through 100 with the publicity
Yeah.
you'll be getting.
Yeah,
but
no, I'm not going to do it. Yeah, $100 seems $100 seems a little bit greedy.
Well, I wasn't sure. So
I'd also
no,
definitely do a limit one per customer at that point.
Yeah.
Try and stop scalping.
don't tell him how to
Well-
run his own business.
Well, and like I said, but what's likely? I mean, so the game plan so far anyway is that as soon as those physical copies sell out, then I'm just going to put the ROM online.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I mean that
would definitely cut it down.
Yeah.
that should help.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't want to do it as a simultaneous launch because I want to make sure that those, because obviously I have to pay to have 100 of these made.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure those sell out. But yeah, day and date when that 100th cart sells out, I'll just put it online.
Yeah. Just to answer the question in the chat here, we actually still have some news topics we're going to talk about. We're just letting Stefan go here. So the stream will be continuing. I will need a pee before we continue, so I'm going to do that as well. But wrapping up.
Well, Tony does that. I will loudly open a
Yeah, exactly.
bag of snacks and pour it in a bowl.
Yeah, exactly. But no, but for real, keep us posted on the prototype, and then obviously I don't think you'll have any trouble selling 100 of them. But I'd love to retweet or like post a link or something to our followers
Sure.
to help out with that, but also maybe give them a chance to own a little piece of history. And
I do
support
have a
you.
tremendous amount going on in my life right now, so I'm not sure with how much alacrity this will happen, but it is absolutely happening.
Yeah.
So don't nobody freak out.
It might take a minute, but once it does, it'll be all good. So,
Yep.
And then obviously, keep me posted on any future developments that you have.
Sure.
We'd love to, chat with you again or
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean,
Obviously, we've been chatting on Facebook Messenger for a while. So
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I work a lot with ex-employees, and if it's one thing that this being in the industry for 16 years has gotten me, it's a Rolodex of people who have stuff.
yes,
So,
yes, exactly.
So I've been leveraging that as much as possible. So yeah, I get new weird stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I like recently Satoru Iwata's business card. Just out of nowhere.
Nice.
Or yeah, just little stuff that like normally like a lot of people wouldn't care about. Like I have coming in the mail, I've got from 1990 an application for Nintendo, like a paper application to work there. Like, and just like weird stuff like that. They very, very small number of people probably care about.
Yeah,
but
that's really cool.
Think,
Still really cool.
Just
though.
like weird stuff.
Yeah,
so that kind of stuff comes in all the time.
So, like that kind of stuff is almost really more interesting than like a rare game or something like. Obviously, not more interesting than the prototype or something that's unreleased, but like these little trinkets that are like a part of the history, but aren't necessarily, like you said, that's something that people would necessarily think about.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we've had some press kits and stuff traded in at Retro Taku, and those are pretty neat to see.
yeah, press kits.
Well,
are
that's sort
fun.
of like my what I for my own channel on YouTube. I really try to focus on things that maybe people haven't seen before, and so that's not necessarily like the rarest, most expensive game. Although I have certainly covered that kind of stuff too. It's more of like I did my last video. I did the North American library carts for Nintendo of America, like their internal library, and so they have very specific barcodes on them and stuff. And so I did a video on those, and because a lot of people see these in the wild and go, oh, it's just some like random rental barcode, and I see a lot of them being torn off, which I wanted to stop immediately.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I love covering stuff that not necessarily is going to be the most like financially amazing, but like more just like things that people just don't know exist, and then I go, hey, look, here's a thing you haven't seen, and that stuff that's what I like.
And I think there's definitely an audience for that. And speaking of which, if you're interested in checking out his channel, there are 2 links in the description below. There's a link to the video that we have the little thumbnail on, the prototype wrestling game that was unreleased, so you can watch a lot of gameplay and also his introduction on that. And there's also a link just to the YouTube channel in general. So please, take a look at those, give him a subscribe, all that good stuff, and he'll be.
And my co-hosts would be mad if I didn't mention our podcast too.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
There's links on the in my videos too. But it's the Collector's Quest podcast. I am 1/3 of that, and we are on Instagram and anywhere that your ears can find podcasts. So SoundCloud and Stitcher and iTunes and all that stuff. So.
Jimmy just said in full caps, Collector's Quest.
Yes. See, I got fans. These aren't all your fans. Some of them are me.
Stop making it not about me.
Subscribing to your podcast. And done.
Excellent. I'll have to check that out as well because I have not.
Yeah.
Yet.
So obviously, as the name infers, we very seldom do we cover news topics, but it's more of just like, so you want to collect for the Xbox, and this is what that looks like, and these are the rare games, and like so it's all collector focused.
That's cool.
More than game news or anything.
Yeah. Jimmy says I listened to it all the way to Nashville last week.
Nice. See.
Oh, excellent.
What are you doing in Nashville?
That's none of your damn business,
That's the
John.
important question. Yeah. Why are you going to Nashville?
Stay out of his business. Oh my god!
You had to see a guy about a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're probably buying PVMs or something, knowing Jimmy.
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, we will let you go for now, and we'll take a quick 2-minute intermission where John opens some bags loudly in front of everyone for all of your entertainment. Please check out the channel in the description below. And Stefan, again, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to come back anytime, and you guys should come on our show sometime too.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I don't know if I'm as in depth as you need me to be for a collecting podcast, but there's a specific topic I can speak on, I'd love to.
So I'm the only one of us that has any experience really with dev hardware. So it would be kind of cool to talk about, like, have a so you want to collect dev hardware, topic and
sure,
talk about
that. That'd be cool. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, just let me know and we'll try to get something scheduled. Okay.
Right on.
All right, man.
Cool.
Well, you have
Thanks,
a good
guys.
rest of your evening, and I'll go ahead and let you go.